Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. I'm Mark Stein, Thrive founder and your podcast host. We're creating sustainable, inclusive, and multi-generational residential communities. Our mission is to combat the epidemic of isolation, revitalize communities, and help others discover the many benefits of engaged community living by offering unique and ecologically sustainable co-living options. In this podcast series, join us as we discuss co-living, in addition to bringing you interesting people from around the world who are doing cool things to expand your knowledge and satisfy your curiosity. Through this podcast, learn more about our concept and see how Thrive co-living communities will bring together people from all walks of life who want to enjoy the best of independent and group living. To find out more about us, please visit our website at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. Thanks for watching and enjoy the podcast. Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Thrive Co-Living Communities podcast. In this podcast, we often talk to people about sustainability, co-living, but I also love to feature people who have unique stories to tell and experiences to share. By doing this, I can show how co-living brings people together from all walks of life, and usually we're interested in a variety of different topics and very curious. So my guest today is definitely has a unique profession. Welcome Robert Bauer to the podcast. He's a caricature artist, easy for me to say,
very good,
and the founder of Goofy Faces Caricatures. So welcome, Robert. Glad to have you here.
Thanks so much, Mark. Appreciate getting a chance to chat with you and everybody else.
So first of all, tell us how you got interested in this. Has it been a lifelong passion? How'd you get started?
The main motivator was starvation. I was in between work as a graphic designer almost 30 years ago. And I could cartoon, I could draw. I had gone to community college for graphic design. I had worked at a small agency doing ads and billboards and everything that graphic designers and art directors do. Found a new job at a place that lasted about 3 months before they downsized me. And that was back in the late 80s when, recessions were much larger than they've been lately. And especially in my field, and especially in Metro Detroit, because unless you were an engineer or auto related and you went to go collect unemployment, they didn't have opportunities for you to go work. They would just hand you your check and say, see you next week. You're on your own. There wasn't many opportunities. So a friend of mine who was also a graphic designer had a client who needed caricatures over a weekend, not live, just in studio, do them at your own pace. He needed 5 of them, black and white. He says, I know you can draw. You've done caricatures, right? And of course, not really, but sure, I can do that. So this was pre-internet. So I actually had to get together with him and get like 5 Polaroids of the faces he wanted me to draw. And then I just sat in my apartment, my 1-bedroom apartment / studio, and just worked on drawing them as caricatures. I think I had a book or something. Again, couldn't look anything up online. There was no online. So I think I may have had a magazine that had a article on caricatures. So I kind of had an idea what I was supposed to do. And I worked over the weekend and handed them in to him. And he heard back from the client. They said they loved them and they paid me. And I think I remember the payment was $25 a face and there was 5 of them. And since I was unemployed, that $125 felt like a gold mine. And I used some of the money and I bought a few more art supplies. And then I started going to coffee shops and I went to a lot of bars in the evening, especially those that had happy hours because I could eat for free. And then I would draw people at the bars, especially girls, and they tipped me. And my goal at that time was to leave a bar with more money than I came in with. And that's kind of how it all started. And then eventually I learned about agencies out there that would book talent, and they would hire a caricature artist to come draw at a birthday party or a high school all-night party or wedding or whatever. And that's where I learned how to do it sort of as a profession, and it was a part-time profession. All that time I was trying to figure out how to get back into doing graphic design work, but Detroit was not a great market at that time for something like that. So I had an opportunity to return to art school. So I enrolled in Ringling College of Art and Design, which is in Sarasota. And that's when I moved to Florida, and I went into computer graphics, and graduated in 2 years and started doing freelance work in computer graphics for quite a while. I did that for about 10, 15 years, went back to Detroit, did a ton of work for GM, Ford, and Chrysler and all of their suppliers. I got to travel a lot. It was very lucrative. I worked as an independent, as a freelancer. All that time, I still did gigs on the side. I was drawing caricatures at corporate parties and weddings and grad parties and everything. So as many people who make a living as professional artists, commercial artists, you don't have one bag, you have many, and you're doing, I do logos, I do this, I do that. And I was no different. It wasn't until 9/11, where up until 9/11, me and a small group of artists were responsible for all of the graphics for all of these corporate execs in Detroit. And the work was ongoing, and it was heavy, and it was relentless and very lucrative. And then 9/11 hit, and the work didn't like scale down. It halted immediately, like hard stop. And we all kind of held our breath. And then when things started getting back going again, I think it gave companies like GM a chance to reevaluate and go, you know what, we don't need to be spending all this money making our executives look really cool with these visuals. We'll just do it on our own, or we'll do it in another way. So a lot of that work just disappeared. And by that time, I was married, had a house, had a child, and like, I can't come up with something brand new. It was either, if I wanted to do that kind of work, I was going to have to relocate to another market, like move to LA or New York or Chicago, which we weren't about to do, or maybe do something with some other aspect that I know how to do. And the other thing I was doing was caricatures. So I had been online. By now the internet's up. Facebook was tiny, but if you wanted to communicate with groups in your special interest, there was user groups, there was, message boards, and there was one way back in the day called The Loop, and it was all of these caricature artists comparing their work, getting excited, looking at each other's stuff. It was really cool, and they were really excited about the upcoming convention, which I said, what's this about a convention? They have an annual caricature convention of caricature artists from all over the world that get together, and they network, and they compete, and they learn, and it's for an entire week. And I go, well, this sounds fascinating. Tell me more. And they all were like selling me on the idea of going to it. And one of them said, go to the convention. It will change your life. So I decided to go. It was in Florida. It was in Orlando. This was 2004. And I went to my first caricature convention. Back then, it was a group called the National Caricatures Network, NCN. And I was blown away, because I had just come from a corporate environment where I was doing work for General Motors and Ford and Chrysler. I was an AV person. I was paid to travel to New York or California or Florida, be behind the scenes, behind the big screen, punching the visuals, creating the visuals. And this was a six-figured executive on a stage with a script, with a teleprompter, with visuals that I've created over his shoulder, just to make him a tiny bit interesting to the viewer, to the audience. And then I go to this thing with all these off-the-cuff artists. They put this thing on themselves. They didn't have an AV department. They didn't have a support group. And they had an awards ceremony where they got up on the stage and no visuals behind them. And they're talking off the cuff. And they were fascinating. They were captivating. They were encouraging. They were inspiring. I was like, man, they got nothing, and still they're far more fascinating than this corporate world that I've come in. So I really threw myself into the group after that. I volunteered. I said, hey, I can do visuals, so we can really spice up how the convention awards goes, we'll have PowerPoint and blah, blah, blah. So they let me do that. And I volunteered, and I ran for the board a year later and got on the board. Eventually I became president. To date, I'm like its longest serving president they've had in the last 30 or 40 years. I'm still on an executive committee for that organization. During my tenure, we changed its name from NCN to ISCA, the International Society of Caricature Artists, because so many of the members are from outside of the US that calling it national didn't make any sense. So it's this global network of artists from all over the world. Once a year, they'll go to the convention. The most recent convention, I think it was its 30th convention, was in Orlando again, this past November, which I attended. And it's such a heartwarming gathering of these artists, because now I've been going for about 16, 17 years. And it's like a family reunion. You get to see these artists from all over the world. And I'm friends with artists from Japan and the UK and Latin America, as well as all over the United States, that it rolled really well with, as I was a member of all of this, starting to build a caricature business in addition to being part of that organization. So I built up my business starting about 2004, where I thought, I'm going to start repping some other artists, because one of the challenges with anybody who does gig work, whether you're a DJ or a magician or a caricature artist, is that you're only one person. So the most popular days where you're going to get booked, you're done. And then you get 11 more calls for the same day, because most of our work is in the evening and weekends, and no one wants, to take dates when you're already available. We want that Saturday, yet you and 12 others want that Saturday. So that's how many of us become agents, because it's like, well, I don't want to pass up on making a couple of dollars, so I'll just pass it to another artist and take a portion, like a commission thing. So that's how a lot of agents kind of start out. And I did the same thing I had a lot of good local friends in Michigan that drove caricatures. So I would rep them and say, if I get these ones I can't do, I'll throw it to you. And we kind of, it would go back and forth. Some of them would throw me a gig because they couldn't do it. But it started to grow. Once I got involved with the trade association, with ISCA, I saw where this could be something I could do nationally. There was only a few others who I'd met at ISCA that were also doing it nationally. And they didn't seem to be threatened by the idea of me doing it as well. They were actually very cordial and respectful, and like, hey, it's a big enough market, just don't be stupid about it, and we won't either. So because a lot of us rep the same artists, none of them are exclusive. So because there's just not enough work to make an artist just exclusive to you. So that's where we really took off. And to date, we currently represent over 550 different caricature artists nationwide. We also got into the retail aspect of caricature, which again, didn't know anything about what it meant to be a retail artist until I joined ISCA. And that's when you see a caricature artist or maybe a face painter that you come across at a zoo or an aquarium or a theme park, and you see them selling caricatures. That's retail. And never heard of it back in Michigan. We don't have any theme parks in Michigan. You have to drive to Ohio if you want to go to a theme park. So I had an opportunity at the Detroit Zoo to send them a proposal back in 2005, and they accepted it. And we opened up our first retail stand back then. And to date, I've had probably about close to 30 different retail stands. We currently have about 6 that are up and running across the country. We're at the LA Zoo. We're in the National Zoo in DC. We're at Elitch Gardens Amusement Park in Denver. We're at Florida Aquarium down here where I'm at in Tampa Bay. And we're just about to open next week at the Mystic Aquarium in Connecticut. And we also have a stand at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach. So we've got our retail division. I've got our agency division, our entertainment division, where you book an artist for your party. And then my studio division is just when people want a commission that I personally do here in my studio. So it's kind of like a 3-legged stool of income for my business. And since starting it back in the days when I first was going to those conventions to today, I've got people that I've assigned to run those portions of the business for me. I've got a booking manager, and she's responsible for making all the contracts, contacting an artist in that area to see if they're available, sending them an agreement, She's very good at that. Same thing with, I've got an accountant who makes sure everybody gets paid on a regular basis. I've got a dedicated social media marketing person who does all of my social media, my blog on our website, our monthly newsletters. And then I've got a specialist who does our SEO PPC, who's very good at making sure if you type in caricature artist, followed by a city or followed by a type of event you're doing, chances are in the top 5, you're going to see the name Goofy Faces pop up. And so it kind of brings you up to speed.
Wow, great story. And a couple of thoughts as you were talking. First of all, I have this image of what a caricature artist conference would be like, and it's sort of like my vision of what a Jehovah's Witness convention would be like. You're all sitting around with the easel, and okay, now I'll do you, now you do me. I guess you also invite guests so that you're not just doing each other, but give a little description of what it feels like to be at a caricature artist convention.
Sure. We've since decided as a group to refer now to it as a conference versus convention. We always called it a convention, but we realized conventions, you have like vendor booths and aisles that you go down, and we don't have that. Ours is more of a competition, and it's a conference. So as a new artist, like when a new artist shows up for the very first time, they enroll, they show up, they sign up. Every artist who decides to compete is assigned a wall space in a large ballroom. You'll see like a bunch of columns on the wall with a number above it. And when you get your badge has a number on it. It's like, oh, that's your space. You have all week to fill that space with your art. So Monday, when we just have an initial address of everybody having breakfast and getting caught up for the year from the board, the room is empty. It's just empty slots. By Thursday of that week, in 4 days, thousands of caricatures will be produced in that room during that time and placed up on the walls so that it looks more like my background, where it's just nothing but caricatures all over the wall. And to me, coming from a professional background, what's fascinating is the quality and the amount of energy and artwork that's generated in such a short period of time for free. It's artists drawing other artists. It's artists drawing other artists' spouses or children or friends who have come as guests. It is a closed conference. Sometimes they'll have an evening where it's open to the public to see the artwork. But when the artists are drawing each other and learning from each other and doing the seminars, it's members and their guests only. You can't just walk in from the public. You can always sign up to be part of the organization and go to the convention, but you have to go do that process. So like usually what happens is seminars tend to be during the day. And then as the evening gets going, that's when, as in many cases, you'll find with creatives, that's when the artists really start drawing. They'll start like drawing after dinner. And I have stayed up until 2:30 in the morning, and the room is just buzzing. You just have hundreds of artists either drawing from pictures that they put up on their laptops, or they're face-to-face with somebody drawing them. There's usually music playing, and sometimes people are snacking or drinking. It's a very loose but productive room with a lot of energy. And I've gone to bed at 2:30 in the morning, and I am not the last one going to bed. The room is still going. It'll go all night long. They leave the ballroom open 24 hours so the artist can maintain, they can stay in there. I've gone in there where there are certain dedicated groups that have slipped under one of the tables that's provided, and they crash for a couple hours, wake back up, and they go back to work. I've never seen that kind of commitment to anything, but their devotion to creating the artwork is amazing. And it's fun because there's no hidden secrets. You know, everybody has to work on most of the work has to be done in the room to be counted towards being voted on by everybody in the room. All the members vote on which art is the best, you know, the best black and white, the best color, the most exaggerated, the most humorous, the best like design style, and all these different categories that we vote on. So the artwork is amazing. And what's even more amazing is the time frame. Is like in 4 days, they've just generated all of this artwork. And then the artwork isn't like mass produced or sold or anything. at the end of the banquet, after the awards is over, all of the artists have to go up. They take all of the artwork off the walls, and then you find the people that you drew and you present it to them. So that's a cool takeaway, literally, is I have dozens and dozens of caricatures of me drawn by some of the best artists on the planet in a collection. Like I have a me gallery on my Facebook Goofy Faces page where you can go through all of these caricatures that have been drawn of me over the years, and they're the vast range of styles and talent is amazing. And I mean, I even have them like on my, I don't even know if you can see that, but like there's one on the back of my phone here, like there. And they're great conversation starters. But yes, it's almost like it's a conference / family reunion slash feels like when you are graduating from high school and you have everybody sign your yearbook. That's kind of like the last day when everybody's exchanging all the artwork. Hey, thanks for the caricature. Hey, I love it. Blah, blah, blah. A lot of people get pictures taken with the artist and their artwork. And then we bring it all home and we all stay in connection with each other over social media throughout the year until the next convention. This year's convention's in November. It's going to be in LA. It'll be exciting. A lot of new artists attend and they learn about it. But it's kind of like this one hub for our industry, because it's not a huge industry, as you can imagine. Caricature artists, there'll be about 200 to 250 artists that might compete each year. That's globally. So if you would extrapolate the people who don't attend but consider themselves caricature artists, you're probably talking 1,000 artists or less on the planet who make the majority of their revenue from drawing caricatures. And of that subset, you've got, less that are here in the United States. Many of them are working at amusement parks or zoos or aquariums like they do for us. Many of them are doing festivals where they travel around the country, living out of a RV or a van, and they just go from town to town. Others strictly do events. They get hired by the hour, which I love to do. I've got an event tonight for the Atlanta Braves down in Sarasota that I'll be drawing at. It's a very unique way to make a living. And if you're an artist looking for an avenue that can generate the kind of money that you could live on, because one of the biggest struggles for most artists is, I want to do my art, but I can't live on this. So they end up selling insurance or flipping burgers or whatever, and they do their art on the side. One of the things that has been a mission statement of our company is to empower artists so that when they come to work for us, they're all independent contractors, whether they're doing gigs for us or they're working at one of our retail stands, they're all independent contractors. So they're free to, when they're not working for us, they can work for a competition, they can work on their own. In fact, we encourage it, because what we've learned over time, especially when you're talking the retail environment, say in a city like DC, where we have artists that draw and paint at the National Zoo, they're only open until October, November, before it's too cold and we shut down. So what do they do in that off season? We can't pay them because they're not generating any revenue. So they're not laid off because they're independent contractors. So what we try to do in the go times, like, you got to save up, you're going to get really busy during the on season. So learn to control your money, because there's going to be skinny seasons. And then during the skinny season, we try to find them gigs. We try to teach them how to do studio work, because we want them to come back the next season. We don't want to lose them to a full-time job. And they don't want, nobody wants them to take the full-time job. It's a necessity for most artists to get something outside of their creative element. So I'm very encouraged over the years to see how many artists that have either worked for us or our competitors, or that we meet at this conference, that have figured out ways to do this full-time, and they are full-time artists. It's come a long way over the last 10 to 15 years. And social media has been a big help on that. If you go to TikTok, if you go to Facebook, a lot of people follow other caricature artists. We have some that have millions of followers because they just record their drawings, and people love watching artists work, and caricatures don't take long. So you can see it drawn pretty quickly. And then others love, and we've been doing this, they love getting reactions where the drawing is pretty much finished and they haven't seen it yet, and I'm about to record their reaction that when I turn it around. If you go to my TikTok page, Goofy Faces TikTok, there are dozens of people reacting to the drawings I do. And each reaction is different. but I think it really hits a sweet spot for what you want in social media. You're getting a guttural, sincere reaction to something. It's not staged. It's not preset in any way. It's like, okay, let's see what we're going to get here. And then some people just fall out of their chairs. Other people just smile and nod. You don't get anything. But a lot of them just, I'm always fascinated how the reactions just can be so overwhelming. They really get a kick out of it. And most of the artists that I talk to who do gigs like I still do, that's what keeps them going. That's why they keep doing, it's good money, but they love doing gigs. They love that interaction. It's like a one-on-one comedy show that you're doing with the guests that are sitting for you. We talk it up with everybody that's sitting there. And then at the end, we get this reaction, and then rinse and repeat. We do it over and over and over again.
Do you do traditional graphic art anymore, or do you exclusively do caricatures?
That's a good question. The only traditional graphic design work I do is for my own company, my logo work, or the signage and graphics that we create for all of our locations. I haven't been paid to do somebody else's like logo design or newsletter, something like that, in 15, 20 years.
Okay. So this is so fascinating. And one of the things that interests me, I'm going to go off on a tangent here in a minute.
Sure.
For a minute. And I came upon this realization when I met with a guy who was into general aviation. So flying, for the audience, flying small private planes. And I went on a ride with him, flight, and then being in the small airport, seeing him talking with other pilots, the preparation that goes on, the different people that were involved. They were talking shop, and I was sort of sitting off to the side. Each hobby, interest, art form has its own group, its own people, and it's like a world in and of itself, just like your world of caricature artists. And there's the tools, there's the nomenclature, there's everything involved in that sub world. And what amazed me was realizing how many of those worlds there are. Matchbox cars, slot car racing, Beanie Babies. There's so many things, model trains, and
cosplay.
everybody that's interested in their thing is pretty much in their lane. And we're not as aware, I'm being kind of esoteric here, we're not that aware of all these simultaneous worlds, sort of like an onion without the smell, where you've got all these simultaneous worlds going on. It's just fascinating to me. So to get a glimpse into another world, and yours is its own world, is just fascinating on the surface. Go ahead.
Well, and to continue on your thought, I totally agree with that. You've got so many of these different buckets of different things, you know, whether it's a sport you're into, or an activity, a trade, like or an art form like we do. And the real positive about it, it's when you're in that, like when you listen to those pilots and stuff, it's about that subject and only that subject. And everybody has an honest, sincere love for that subject. And they want everybody to grow with them. They want to share knowledge. They want to exchange knowledge. They want us to encourage newbies to become as interested as they are. It is the human race at its best. It's when humans are getting together to cross-pollinate on something that they share an interest in, and politics aren't in it, status isn't in it. One of the best amazing things with our group is there are some heavy hitters that attend the Caricature conference, and many of them are guest speakers. These are artists that have drawn for Mad Magazine or have freelanced and designed famous character designs for Disney and all these others. And many of the artists know who these other artists are, and they're approachable. you meet
And
them
you
in the fall.
probably worshiping these guys.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have witnessed it. The last convention, I met a great guy from Boston, really talented veteran caricature artist, and he loved an artist. He loved several of them. One of them he loved was Tom Richmond, as a well-established caricature artist in our field. He has probably the most breakout of just being known by caricature artists because he's done work for Quentin Tarantino. He's worked on movies like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's been Mad Magazine's satire panelist who does the stories, the movie parodies. He's done that for 10, 20 years. And so like this guy knew who he was, and like he was standing by, and I was fortunate enough to meet Tom 18 years ago. So I know him personally. So when I'm like, oh, you want to talk to Tom? Hey, Tom, Dennis would like to meet you. And Dennis is like trembling because he's like, oh my God, I worship this guy. I go, Tom's cool. He's totally normal. He doesn't need bodyguard. He can answer your questions. I had one of my managers attend this year's or last year's convention for the very first time. He drove in for a day, and he was concerned, which many newbies are. It's like, it might be kind of cliquish. I don't think I'm going to fit in. And one of the artists there, whose name is Alani, has like over 4 million followers on TikTok and Instagram and all that. He's really pushed hard and done a great job of getting a social media presence. And all the artists, like my manager, knew him because of this. So to him, he's only seen him on a screen, which, you know, that's like seeing somebody on a television screen or a movie screen. You have a aura about them. And Alani's done gigs for us, and I've known him for many years because of the convention. So I was like, oh, you like Alani? Oh, I think he's amazing. It's like, oh, hey, Alani, come here. Frank would like to meet you. So, you know, he got to meet him. Like, it's like he's, and I found out later, like Alani sat with him for like an hour, just talking about stuff. And I go, yeah, you're not going to get this in a lot of other, you know, like if you're a big Academy Awards fan and you go out to Hollywood, you're not going to sit down with Sylvester Stallone or somebody along that line and just chat with it. But here it's you've got some people that you might worship, but they're still approachable and they're sharing their knowledge and their experiences. It's just a wonderful thing. You know, I'd like to see more and more of that kind of stuff happen.
Okay, let's dig into your art a little bit. This and it's a very unique art form. I've done theater work, so I have a little bit of a feel for some of the nuance, but share with us, if you're sitting down doing a new caricature, you've got a new subject, talk us through, there are certain things, certain facial features that you emphasize. How do you pick those out to give that person their unique look? How do you chat them up so that you get to know something about their personality? Just talk us through how you, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, different for kids, different for older people, but sort of give us a sample as if you're doing it and what you're looking for, and get us underneath the covers on how you do it.
Okay, and it can vary. So like if somebody commissions me to do a studio piece and I'm drawing from photos, that's an entirely different experience than when I'm drawing live. So let's start with live because it's what I love to do the most. So if I'm hired by the hour to come and draw at your party or whatever, when somebody sits down to be drawn, the first thing I'm doing is I want to make them feel comfortable. And the better veteran gig artists are really good that way. They're like a bartender. How you been? Have you been here before? How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. We want them not to be focused on, hey, I'm staring at you, trying to figure out what makes you look like you. If they think about it, they're worried that we are tearing them apart, and we're trying to figure out how to make them ugly or distorted, which good caricature artists, that's not what they're attempting to do. Caricature is the art of exaggeration. So if you have a big nose, like I do, every caricature of me has an enormous nose, but I'm okay with that. It's what makes me me. But maybe on the grand scheme of things, you've got very symmetrical, appealing, attractive features. Then the artist is going to exaggerate that and make it look movie star-like. So it's not always a case where we're trying to make people look embarrassingly bad. What we're trying to do is capture the essence of what makes you yourself and put it on paper very quickly and in an exaggerated fashion.
But still not offensive to that person. And that's probably hard, because there's some people who, let's stay with the nose, who have a big nose that are very self-conscious about it and feel negative about it. So how do you're not going to know that, they're not going to share that. What do you do with that? How do you manage that?
I've been doing live gigs now for 28 years, and it's still an art, not a science, to walking that line. I've gotten really good at taking off the sharp edges of my drawing so that I offend the least people possible, which oddly enough, when you go to something like the annual conference, they go counter to that. They want you to, if you get an experienced artist across from you who's draw me, but mess me up, and you do a cute caricature, they're disappointed. It's like Bizarro World. They want it to be monstrous. They want to see how far you can push it. But in the general public, it's the opposite. It's like, don't make fun of my chin or my nose, or I'm everybody's self-conscious. Most people who don't like caricatures don't even like their photos.
Yeah.
So the first thing I do is I make them really comfortable. So almost anything I show them is going to get a smile and kind of a whew. I was worried there, because I'll even say stuff to make them think I'm going crazy, and I'm not. So that, yes, you build up an expectation so they realize, okay, this isn't as bad as I had in my mind. So that helps. And then the other part of it is like, I've had people that I felt, ooh, I went way overboard on this woman's jawline. I gave her almost a manly jaw. But when I turn around, she just falls out of her chair. Oh, this is awesome. This is so great. And then I've had other people that I've drawn, men or women, that I went like Superman Clark Kent. I meant real safe and nothing. And I've turned around and they've just been disgusted with it. You can't predict how people are going to react to a caricature, because so much of it, it's one of the most intimate things you can do between two strangers, is to draw even more so than a portrait, because caricatures, like, I need to figure out what about you you're probably self-conscious about, but it makes you who you are, and I've got to exploit that. So people wonder about the why is caricature so popular. I've been doing it for 28 years, and it's each year we get busier. And I say it's because it involves two of the most important things to people: art and themselves. The only thing people are more fascinated about than art is themselves. It's about you. This moment is about you. So it's a very intimate moment. And a good caricaturist, when they capture it, becomes a hero to that person. And sometimes we've all been there when even the artist will admit, it's like, yeah, I should draw it again because I'm not happy with the results. And sometimes the person you draw senses it, and they're disappointed, and you miss. But I think that high wire act is what makes it so exciting and valuable. One of the things right now that has a lot of artists very concerned is AI, because there are artificial intelligence apps out there that are just spitting out artwork left and right. And we've got people who have never drawn a thing in their lives claiming to be artists, because they typed a description into a prompt on a computer, and the computer did all the work. And even the work that the computer did, it did so by scraping artwork from other existing real artists. All of us as artists are influenced by other artists, but what do you call it when a computer's doing that? We don't know yet. It's too new. Plus, AI generated artwork has no trademark, has no licensing, so nobody owns it. So an artist who feels it's like that style that AI just generated is my style, and I have no recourse because it's generated from a computer. So there are a lot of artists right now that are concerned, because there's many professions that require artists to professionally generate artwork on short deadlines, on limited budgets, that an art director or somebody who makes those decisions now can go to a website or an app and beat on it all day saying, draw me this, draw me this, draw me this. And it's a computer, it doesn't care. The only thing we've got going for us as caricature artists is we're way at the back of the line as far as being concerned artists about AI, because No one's really interested in what a computer has to think about your face in a live environment. It doesn't matter. But people love, after they've seen a few drawings from a single artist at an event, well, I love what he did to her, and I love how he drew the two kids. I want to see what he does to me. I want to see his opinion of me. That is part of the magic of what we do, and what makes it a popular hiring to have us at an event is if you've got a good caricature artist, it's like having a one-man comedian that everybody's reacting to.
Mm-hmm. But on the downside, if somebody, and Wally the best? Dolly. Dolly. Is
Yeah,
that the best of the AI art?
I haven't used them all. There's Dali and there's Midjourney. Both of them, I've seen artwork that, and I played with them myself, just like, make me a caricature in this artist style. And it's like, okay,
Right.
I have nothing to worry about yet. It's still amateurish looking. It's better than some artists that have come to apply for us, but it's not quite that. And they always draw way too many fingers, but you know, it's new. It'll get better.
Mm-hmm. So that part of it, create a caricature of me in the style of Robert Bauer, that probably is going to happen. It's just not the live aspect and all that interactive stuff and entertainment value of a personal appearance, but the other is probably going to happen, right?
I think it'll eventually happen. For somebody like me, who I've never done a ton of editorial caricatures like somebody like a Tom Richmond or an Ed Steckley or Court Jones. These are artists that are hired all the time to do commercial work and studio work for magazines and stuff. I could see them being more threatened because they're out there. You can Google them and see their artwork. If you Google me, most likely you're just going to see people holding up their drawings because I drew them at a live gig. Versus I didn't get commissioned to draw Will Smith for a magazine. I think those artists will be challenged more because the AI can find them and look at their art. It can't really find my artwork because I'm down a different avenue. It may eventually get there, but I think artists like me are at the back of the line. I don't think we're going to get with it as quickly.
Probably once it starts piercing video, then if you've done recorded events of you doing a drawing, then it'll be able to pull that out of the video and see your style. Because I do think AI is going to dig down into video. If I'm using ChatGPT to create a script, I know I'm getting off subject here, then I do, and even if I'm doing a video script, I'm massaging that content and making it as original as I can, scrubbing it before I put it even in a video, because I do think that they're going to be able to detect it. Well, let's go back to your art though. How much do you talk to people as you're doing your art, and how your caricature, and how distracting is that for you? Or have you been doing it so long that it doesn't bother you?
Yeah, I get into a zone and a muscle memory when I'm sitting and drawing somebody, and I'll have a conversation with them almost identical to what you and I are doing, with a pause every once in a while. Give me a smile, look to the left. Okay, thank you. And which really puts people at ease, because some people are so self-conscious of being in front of somebody who's going to stare at them for the next 5 minutes that I relate it to a bartender who knows how to put a customer at ease when they're sitting across from them. And good caricaturists are really good that way. They know how to quickly distract them with small talk and interest of something. You know, in our industry, it's easy. You're usually at an event, or like we're in a nice location in Florida. It's like, hey, so how long are you down here for? Where parts do you like to go to? It makes it real easy for them to just go on about something that's a distraction, and I can just sit there, and I'm listening, but I'm also, drawing. And that's in most cases. You're going to have situations as a gig artist where you're drawing at a loud event, or maybe I'm doing one with lots of children where they're literally lined up behind me and it's an assembly line. And some of those, I hardly say a word to them. And funny enough, kids are usually, people would think the opposite. Kids tend to be easier to draw than adults. They have a mindset of, I'm an adult and you're the child. And what do you want me to do? I'll sit here. They've been told a million times by their parents to smile for something. So for me to
sit still
or sit still and smile. So they'll actually do it, where I'll get adults at a wedding, they've been drinking and they have their phones out and they're looking around and they're talking to Eddie over there. And I said, no, I need you eyes over here, please. And then they're a little bit more of a challenge. So that's why the interaction with them is beneficial, because I got their attention. Whereas a child, they'll give me enough smile and straight without a word that I get done, and they're smaller faces, simpler faces, so I can get them done real quickly. It's like, okay, you're good to go. And then didn't hardly even say a peep to them.
Yeah, plus they don't have the different social masks that adults do. So they're going to let their personalities come out without a mask, if you will.
Yeah, their smiles can be a little bit more sincere. Some cases, sometimes they're just gritting it because their mom told them to smile. But yeah, there's a sincerity to it. What I like about the kids is when I show them the caricature, because some adults, God bless them, are very good at being very polite with the reaction. You know, oh, wow, now that's different. You know, they're hiding the fact that they really don't like it, you know, but they're being kind about it, which I appreciate. With a child, when I turn a caricature around and you see the kids just face light up, you know, they just grin and they grab it and they just staring at it. It's so sincere. And you see that in the child, is like, oh, won that one, you know, they're happy with their caricature. No question about it. He's not faking that.
And conversely, will they be really brutally honest if they don't like it with their reaction and their comments?
Oh yeah, they'll just drop it to the side, start crying, and get out of the chair. And the parent, I'm so sorry. I don't know why he's upset, you know, blah, blah. Fortunately, because I've drawn so many children over the years, that happens rarely, because, you know, there was an excellent discussion amongst a group of caricature artists, many who worked at some of the major theme parks down here in Florida. And they remarked about, they go, what's such an oddity is parents who are worried about the caricature artists making fun of their child, but right in front of their child, they will exclaim to the artist, don't draw her freckles. You know, her teeth are crooked, so she's not going to give you a full smile. It's like, how are you saying it in front of the public any worse than the artist possibly drawing it? And I don't know your kid. This is your kid. They have to go home with me knowing that you think that they're ugly with freckles or their chin is too pointy. It's like, why would you put that on your child? So the psychology is just fascinating.
Yeah. Do you probe people sometimes, or does it depend on the setting, for what their passions are, so that you draw them in a scuba outfit with a mask on? Do you try to tie them to their interest, or
yeah, it's a good question. I used to do a lot more of that years and years ago when I would draw faces and bodies, but many of us who've been doing gigs for a while now realize that they're okay with just head and shoulders, which gets more people drawn per hour, which makes the client happy. So in those cases, on rare occasion, I might work something. If I have an interesting conversation and they went off on a tangent and started cracking up over a nickname that they recently got or something, I can sneak that into the drawing and I know I'll get a great reaction. If somebody is buying a caricature at one of our stands, we charge a different rate for faces and bodies. And there it's more popular because it's a memory for the child or the parents. And maybe the child's being drawn as a baseball player or a hockey player or a gymnast or a ballerina. So in those cases, you know, you're really customizing it to the child or the customer's interest. So you've got to get really good at certain gags, as we call them. You've got to know how to draw somebody on a motorcycle, or the bane of all of us artists' existence is either bicycles or horses, because you can't
say horses.
Oh my God. For years, it looked like I was drawing kids on the back of the neck of a Great Dane. They look terrible. So, you know, you really have to like sit down off clock and just kind of work up the way it should be until you kind of have it in your head. And then it becomes, again, it's a muscle memory thing. Almost every good caricature artist with years of experience knows how to do the slam dunking basketball player, or the grand slam hitting baseball player, or the pirouetting ballerina, or in our case, because I'm down here in Florida, I could draw a mermaid in my sleep with a child's face on it, because there's just so many mermaid drawings that are requested when you're near the dolphins and everything. Or drawing a kid with a dolphin, that's another popular one.
And I bet, or is it the commission work that's more likely to bring in their interest because you're spending more time on it, you're not in public and that sort of thing?
Yeah, in fact, it goes the opposite with commission work. They will give me the most excruciating details that I could never work into the drawing, that have nothing to do with the likeness. But for some reason, they just had to tell me how their pastor went to Aruba back in the 70s and has these experiences. Like, is that what you want me to work on? Because you also mentioned 11 other things, and I can maybe work 3 of them into the drawing, because otherwise it's going to be this huge mess. So which ones are important? So yeah, I'll get strange requests in the commissioned ones where they'll drill down really deep, and some of it is because they'd love it to be in the drawing, and I think some of it they just want to tell somebody about their friend and all the stuff that they did, whether you working in it or not. It's funny.
So a mermaid in Aruba on a dolphin would be that kind of request. Okay.
Yes, that would be the kind of request that I would get.
All right. What's the most bizarre request for setting the setting that just pops in your mind?
Oh gosh. There's many of them that are, I don't know if I call them bizarre, a little on the lame side. I mean, I love all my customers who order studio work, but a lot of times they don't have they're not visionaries, so their descriptions are impossible to draw. Like I want a drawing of my brother who's a marathon runner, and I want the number 11 on his chest, and I want him jogging into the sunset. It's like, okay, if he's jogging into the sunset, then his chest is faced away from me. I can't draw number 11. I mean, you didn't have to go to art school to kind of figure out the physicalness of that. I can't do what you just, it's a physical impossibility. I can't do it. So I get that kind of weirdness. What's funny is I've done so many different drawings, corporate and personal, that nothing really stands out as far as one that seemed to be quite bizarre. I've had quite a few that have hired me at a higher rate to do a caricature that they use for their business. So I'll do everything from a maid riding on a broom, kind of like the witch kind of thing, or a guy, doing the thumbs up, and he's got a moving company who really wants to focus on his face. I'll get little things like that. But
how about unusual events that you've done? For example, I doubt you've done this, but I think the most fun one could be, and maybe challenging, would be, drag is really in the news right now. Have you ever been able to go to a drag show, but then it would be hard to caricature somebody in drag?
Yeah, I've never done a drag show. I've done many Halloween events. People who are not artists think the greatest date to hire a caricature artist is Halloween. And every artist that I know, including myself, goes, it's the worst day because none of you look like you, or you're wearing a mask, or you're at least wearing makeup. Why do you want to be depicted in an exaggerated cartoon of this one time you look like this and the rest of the year you don't? You could take a camera, which you probably already have, take a picture of you, dressed up as a witch, and then I could draw you tomorrow when you look like you. But I think that people love the idea of being drawn when they're made up because they're not themselves. The most offended people tend to be those that you hit it right on the nail right on the head. Most of the unwritten victories amongst professional caricaturists, like when we get together at the conference, would talk about, yeah, they hired me to draw John Travolta, and I heard through the art director that he was really pissed. Yeah, and they're like, they're not happy that he was pissed. They realized they struck a nerve by how accurate the caricature was, and I could translate that to on occasions where I would draw a male or female at a party. I could tell they were really proud of themselves. And then when I drew them, they were put off by the drawing, but everybody around them said, he nailed you. That is exactly you. Again, it's that whole psychology part of it that is fascinating, because like, look, I'm just going by what you're giving me. And then I'm just quickly trying to put it down on paper in 5 minutes. It's just a scratch. It's just a doodle. You shouldn't let this ruin your life. But some people, you know, their psyche is in such a way that they see themselves a certain way and assume the rest of us see them that way. And when you pop that bubble, it's very deflating to them. And if their friends weren't there to like make it worse by saying, no, that's you. That's definitely you. So and which is why a lot of people just won't get drawn. One of the competitions that we have every year at the conference is a likeness competition, where we'll take about 5 or 6 photos of faces that are not famous. They can't be faces that people already know who they are. And you're given 10 minutes to draw that face in black and white. And you go through a concession of about 5 faces that you draw, and then they're immediately put up on the wall with a printout of the faces that were projected on a wall for them all to draw simultaneously. And we vote at that moment on which ones look the most like those photos. It's an extremely tough competition to judge, because so many of the drawings are so good. But one of the most telltale epiphanies from that competition is when I've talked to several newbies who have attended for the first time. They may have been drawing for decades. They're really good, but they've never been put into this moment where they're got 10 minutes to draw that face and 200 others are doing the exact same thing. So they're looking at the wall and I go, what's going through your head? And most of them have said, paraphrase this exact statement. They go, none of the drawings look like each other, but they all look like that person. I said, that's it. It's drawing a face is like a fingerprint. Everyone is slightly different. There are no identical interpretations. You're getting the mood of the artist, the angle of the artist. Like maybe if you're drawing a live model, it's slightly different. If you know that person, the caricature is going to have some influence because you know body language and certain mannerisms that that person has that a stranger does not know. But the long and short of it is there's no absolute one right way to draw a caricature of a person. And I inform a lot of people who are nervous when they sit down for one of that fact. I said, look, this is just my interpretation of you at this very moment. I could draw you 30 minutes from now and the drawing could look a lot different. I could have another artist next to me drawing at the same time. It's going to look a lot different. Don't feel that I'm pegging you and this is who you are forever and you have to live with it. It's much lighter than that. And I think many people that are sitting for me when I do that, they take comfort when I tell them that information.
Is that contest you were talking about likenesses and not caricatures?
They're still caricatures, but okay. the what's being graded on is how good your likeness is. So okay. Yeah, so some artists don't exaggerate much at all. But since they're being voted on by other caricature artists, they might decide, yeah, that one looks a lot like them, but I don't see any caricature in it, so I'm not going to vote for it. Yeah. And then some go extreme and it's like, wow, they really know how to exaggerate, but now I don't see the person because it's too much exaggeration. So I'm not going to vote for that one. So yeah, it has a kind of a range.
Last question on technique, and that is black and white versus color. How do you decide? Is it about the amount of time you have? Talk to me about those two different styles.
Well, yeah, it's usually predetermined. Like when I'm doing gigs, 90% of the gigs I do are strictly black and white with maybe a little bit of tone thrown in. Color just takes almost twice as long. So very few guests who book us opt for color because it just takes too long. If they have a real small party, then I'll get hired to do color. Now, when I draw studio, I might get, depending on what they order, it might be black and white or color. And I also get hired to draw digitally, like the drawings behind me. Like we do live digital, you can hire us to draw at a trade show or a corporate event, and we will draw on an iPad or similar device, and it's projected on a big screen, and then we print them out. Those are almost always in color because when we're working digitally, it's much easier to add color quickly and simply. We also offer remote sketches where I'm able to draw just like we're talking now, and you'd be able to see over my shoulder as I'm drawing you. Most of those we also draw in color because, again, the digital platform works a little quicker than drawing with color in a traditional medium. The inverse is that is when I'm drawing black and white, I can't draw faster than I can when I'm sitting down on my easel at a gig and I'm just drawing on a piece of cardstock with my marker. I can whip out a face in as little as 2.5 minutes, whereas it's going to take me probably 4 minutes to 5 minutes in black and white on a drawing tablet or an iPad.
Okay. And I bet that's changed a lot during the years with technology, that you probably have more opportunities to do it on a tablet than, and it used to be, it could only be on paper or cardstock or something like that.
When I went to my very first convention in 2004, there were 2 artists on the planet that were drawing digitally. And I mean, their setup was monstrous. So they had to really know their stuff. And both are still around, both still work digitally, and they're very good. And now within our network of over 550 artists, probably 40% of them can work digitally because the price and technology barriers have dropped significantly over the years. Apple alone with the iPad, when they finally came out with the Apple Pencil, was a major game changer. I used to have a different brand drawing device, which was good, but it was PC based. It was heavy. It reacted quickly. It was great for drawing, but that's about all I could use the thing for, even though it was technically a tablet. And now with an iPad, which does everything, I can check my email, I can watch movies. It's much lighter. It's much more responsive. And then I add the Apple Pencil to it. I can go and wander around a room during a networking event with my iPad, and I can sit there with my drawing pencil and I can draw a digital one, show it to them, and then email or text it to them on the spot. So yeah, it's amazing how far it's come.
Do you have different widths of pencil, eraser size, so that you're getting different textures on there?
In the digital realm?
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that we would be able to do in a traditional capacity, you can do in a digital capacity, whether it's mixing colors, translucency, transparency, thickness, responsiveness. I can create and I've got nibs and markers built into my digital platform that draw the same way that a black marker does, where the more pressure I put, the thicker the line goes. Or if I draw fast, sometimes you'll even get some streaking like you would with a drier marker. The parallel to how well they've designed digital drawing and painting software to emulate traditional media is astounding. I mean, they've really, I've got so many drawings and things that it's hard to tell, was that done with acrylic or was that done digitally? Just, undetectable. You can't tell the difference.
Very cool. So do you want to do an example?
Sure. Let me see.
And I'm of the same attitude as probably most people. I don't like my picture taken because I don't like what I look like in a photograph. I don't like my voice being recorded, but
well, you picked the right line of work, didn't you?
I don't see anybody else here in my studio that's going to volunteer to do it. So
yeah, I guess you're out of luck. Once you launch and you get into the software, I'm using a program called Procreate, which allows me all these different types of nibs. It's almost unlimited. You can draw all sorts of stuff. I've got a whiskers brush when I have to draw somebody with whiskers, which is kind of cool. Or it's even got like a cloud brush. It just, and you can import or make your own nibs unlimited. You can just keep going. So what I usually start with is just what's like a magic marker nib when I start to draw. So if I was to do this, like say this was an event, a remote event, and I've got this up and I'm ready to draw. Mark is my first guest that I'm drawing. I'd have Mark look up at me, pretend he's having a good time. I'm going to switch this to speaker mode. And I'm going to say you're pinned. So now you're bigger on my screen, which helps. So yeah, so just look up and be happy for a second. I'm making some decisions as to what I think are the important elements to draw on Mark. So in his case, I'm going to start with the side cheeks and maybe a little bit of the chin here. A lot of the binary decisions that a caricature artist has to make as they're going over is like where the eyes hit on the head. Is there more volume below or more volume above?
You want me to take the glasses off?
No, you can keep them on. What I would, because people will ask that, and I go, how do people mostly recognize you? Do you wear your glasses a lot? And if that's the case, that's fine, leave them on. If they're hit or miss and you want to be drawn without them, I tell them, as long as I haven't started on that part, you can take them off.
Yeah, if I'm on Zoom, it's with glasses, and if I'm in real life, it's not.
It's not. Okay, well, you're going to have this, you'll have your Zoom caricature that you can show people what you look like when you're in front of the computer. And we got some laugh lines down here. And then I'm
oh yeah, those are pronounced. Those lines are pronounced.
Yeah, everything in drawing caricatures is relativity, you know, how it relates to the other parts of the face. And a good caricature artist is able to get the most important ones in a very short period of time. And sometimes, and this is where the variance comes in, you'll have another artist draw that same face and they won't focus on the same things, but they really nailed the other parts well enough that they still got a likeness. So I tend to draw the glasses on first before I put the eyes in them.
Right.
So I'll come down to like this. And this is one of the cheats that I love with digital, is I can come back here and go, yeah, I want that to be like that. And I can erase it to where you cannot tell that I overshot it or something. Something I cannot do when I'm drawing live traditionally. In fact, I will do a couple of days worth of drawing digitally, and then I'll get hired to draw in person traditionally. And I will be in front of my easel with a piece of paper, and I will try to pinch and zoom closer on the piece of paper until I realize I can't do that here. This is not my iPad. So yeah, that whole muscle memory thing can really mess you up here. Now, what I'm noticing with Mark is one of the elements that when we train new artists, we tell them to look for is you want to see, do they have large or small eyes? Are those eyes close together or far apart? And also look for the tilt in the eyes. Are they straight on? Are they tilting up? Are they tilting down? So in your case, the outside of your eyes tilt down more than the inside. So that's an element that I'm working on. To exaggerate the fact that I think that you have more mass from your eyes down versus above, I'm going to reduce the amount of forehead to exaggerate the fact that, in my editorial opinion of you, there should be more down than above. And to make that statement, when you want to make a nose big, you got to make eyes that are small. Or if you want to make a nose big, you've got to make a chin that is small. If you make everything big, nothing looks big. It's always a comparison.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's a candidate for your most unusual question when you're doing your work.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been asked to do sexually explicit, I'm not asking for it, but sexually explicit caricatures with couples?
There has
or
been
suggestive,
yeah.
Sexually suggestive.
Yeah, sure. There has been home parties where the alcohol was flowing freely, that they wanted me to get as racy as I could with the couple. And I know many caricature artists who have drawn even at like swinger events and things with mixed results. Some said it was a great time because nobody gave a, they were all very loose and they didn't care how you made them look. They liked it to be outrageous. And others just said, yeah, it was a little too outrageous. I felt uncomfortable. And, I kept my clothes on and they didn't. So yeah, it has shown up, definitely. I used to, when I was much younger, we used to go to the strip clubs when my buddies were all getting married we'd go, like a bachelor party. And of course, if I had paper and pen and started drawing the girls, they loved getting drawn. So we'd get more girls to come over to our table if I did a sketch of them. So that's another little incentive for guys if they want to get into drawing caricatures, is if you can make the girls look hot in your drawings, you'll always have somebody to draw if you go to bars or gentlemen's clubs and stuff like that. I'm not.
And the bouncer let you draw the women there without throwing you out?
Well, you make sure to draw the bouncer first. That helps. Yeah, I've gotten thrown out of bars when I was much younger for drawing people in a regular bar. I don't know that when I was doing those with my buddies, I think we were spending enough money as a group of bachelors that they didn't give us any grief. But that is another question.
That's another question. So it's a good pickup technique, for single guy caricature artist.
Yeah, I wouldn't limit it to just guys. There's quite a few very talented females that I know who draw caricatures. They are awesome. But for awkward guys, yeah, this is great because you're forced to engage with the opposite sex and make it about them, which is something that a lot of guys aren't good at. They make it about themselves instead of about the person. And This is like, look, you can ask me questions about me if you want, but this is about you. What's your favorite color? What do you like to do? Blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it's a great, and I would go further and say that not only are caricatures a good social aspect if guys want to, date or meet women, that's kind of selling it short. This will help you in all aspects of your life. I tell all of our new caricature artists this. I said, when you get good at drawing caricatures, that means you're also good at sales techniques, psychology, at making people feel comfortable about engaging them with small talk or bigger talk. And one of the things that has been a benefit for me, and I've also seen it work with other artists, and they go, gee, this is something I never realized was a cool benefit from drawing caricatures, is I'm not afraid of people. I have to stare at people for several minutes and they're usually uncomfortable. I'm not at all, because I'm just trying to get face. So they realize they kind of have a leg up once they learn how to draw caricatures, because they've had all this unrealized face time that they've gotten really good at being kind of an authority for 5 minutes. I need you to smile at me. I need you to point you. The more you take charge when you're drawing of the person that you're drawing by making them feel comfortable and directing them on what you want them to do, just like a photographer would do at a photo shoot. You start realizing that you have a little bit of power that, it used in a good way, really sets you up. Because like I go to networking events and I'm not afraid to get up in front of a room and talk to anybody because, I've been around people all the time and I kind of know how people behave. I think it's one of the most unrealized assets to this line of work. It kind of applies to almost all entertainers, but I think with caricature artists, it's intensely so because you're just sitting there staring at somebody's face, asking them a few personal questions and requesting that they pose and do certain things for it. This is very challenging always on Zoom. But what color are your eyes, Mike?
Hazel, greenish brown.
I thought it was Mark, but okay, hazel. So I will make them. Missed opportunity for a joke. Yeah, so they look kind of brown on Zoom. That happens a lot with and today's St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, no green on.
Well, see, that's one of the magical pluses when I'm drawing this. Now you are wearing green. Could even put a shillelagh in your hand, and then I've got different nibs for different things. I've got this retail marker nib, which is a broader nib. I can paint quicker because it's broader. And I like to do my tones with this.
I see that.
Like that. And it's really helpful with glasses. I can go in and maybe put a a couple of highlights here, like you're getting a little bit of glitter there, maybe a little sparkle on the lips there, and then I can even go, I've got like a nice sunny bright color with an airbrush that I use for when I do my highlights. I've cheated over the years from the fact that every caricature I've ever drawn, the sun is in the upper right corner, so that it's one less decision that I have to make when I'm drawing a bunch of people. And then after the fact, a lot of times I'll do a remote event where I've drawn 10 individual people, and then they come back and go, we want a group caricature. So we started offering a special package where we'll draw you individually, and then once we're offline for a small fee, we will combine them all in one group caricature, and it'll look like a group because you can't really tell that they were individual. And that was very popular. And by making sure everybody has the same light source,
Right.
they belong together. When you draw people with different light sources and you try to put drawings together, they don't work.
Mm-hmm. As you're finishing up, are there, you've got thousands of stories. Your expertise is really impressive, but are there any things that we haven't talked about your art, we'll get contact information in a moment, but just any other observations about your art, the business that you'd like to talk about or share?
I would say that as with what everybody's going through right now in the economy that we're in, we're always looking for new talent. We're always looking for artists that can come join our team. We have all our different retail stands throughout the United States and many more that are now coming online, because this is sort of the start of the season for many of them that are not down south. We're opening up a few new ones this year, and we're going to be recruiting for artists. So if you think you can draw, we offer free training. The qualifications are, we got to see that you can do a little bit of drawing ability. We can't take somebody who's been an accountant their whole life and they can't draw a stick figure. But if somebody can, a lot of people out there can are amateurs and can sketch a face a little bit. And if we see that you have that ability, we can probably turn you into a caricature artist or a face painter, if not both. And then you can come and learn the craft. It's a great way to make extra money. It's a great way to make part-time money. And for many of people, it's a great way to start a career. They eventually create their own businesses. We've got many who've worked for us over the years that I'm proud to see that they're out there on their own doing their own businesses. And we still list them with us for gigs, and they still do gigs for us. So it's a good thing for everybody. And I encourage anybody who has wanted to do something creatively and they feel a yearning to do it but haven't a clue where to get started, reach out to us. We have an online application. We even have an online evaluation test that you can take in your home at your convenience. You draw from a few photos that we provide, and we'll evaluate them for free. And we think you've got something worthwhile. We'll take it from there, and it might be a career starter for you.
So give us contact information for that part. That I guess it's Goofy Faces. How do people that would like to do this find you?
You can always go to our website at goofyfaces.com. If you're interested in career opportunities, you can go to goofyfaces.com/apply. That'll take you right to the application page. We are on Facebook. We are on TikTok. We are on Instagram. We're on Twitter. You can see lots of other artists, including myself, samples of work on our TikTok feed, on our Instagram feed. We have a very comprehensive Facebook page for Goofy Faces, where you will see job postings, artists' artwork, ads and such. It's a great way to kind of get a feel for what we're about, as well as the website.
What about getting in touch with you personally to do a gig, remote gig?
If anybody's looking to hire, they can reach me via email at rbauer@goofyfaces.com. That's RBAUER @goofyfaces.com. You can call or text me directly. My phone is 248-895-8520. Love doing gigs down here in St. Pete. I live half the year down here. I live the other half of the year up in Metro Detroit. And love to come and draw at any of your upcoming parties that you might be having.
And have caricature artists will travel, I bet. Or if somebody wants you specifically for an event, you'll travel to that event, probably asking for travel expenses. Or I guess they have the option of getting someone else in your network that's closer to them.
Yeah, one of the great advantages that we've put together with our website is the minute you're on the page, you can punch in your zip code of where the event's taking place. That will show you the closest artist to your location. And in most cases, there's no additional fee for travel. If they're 60 miles or less, usually is the cutoff. If you don't have somebody close to you, but there's an artist maybe within 90 miles, there will be a small travel fee. And depending upon, like, since I've been doing it for so long, I will be requested on demand where they'll pay a travel fee. I've traveled on cruise ships and drawn. I've gone from Michigan down to Miami and out to Vegas on occasion. But 9 times out of 10, people would prefer to save the money and just get somebody local. All of our artists that we have been vetted and have many years of experience and are good in the markets they serve. So we can get you somebody really good in Vegas or Chicago or Dallas or Boston or New York, Florida, Detroit, wherever you go. We've got good artists all over the place that love to do this.
And internationally, I heard you focusing more. The conference is international, but
Yes.
your focus is national. Is that right?
Yes, my focus is national. If somebody is outside of the United States, every once in a while I'll do a gig over in Windsor because Windsor, Canada and Detroit are very close. But there's some great artists in Canada. There's some amazing artists in Europe and Japan and overseas. The trade association that I'm a member of, the International Society of Caricature Artists, that is a great resource to go to find artists abroad. Many who do gigs just like I do. I know some out of Belgium and the Netherlands and Europe and Germany and Austria that are awesome, fun guys, super talented, and they can be booked for events over in Europe and across the oceans.
What's that international conference website?
Theirs is
URL?
simple. It's caricature.org.
Thanks, Robert, for joining us today to talk about your work as a caricature artist with Goofy Faces. Everybody, if you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave your comments below. Let me know what you think about my caricature. I liked it and enjoyed it. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Thrive Co-Living Communities podcast. Thanks for joining us for another great episode of the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. To learn more about our mission and how you can support our vision of creating co-living communities worldwide, please visit us at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. To receive advanced viewings of our podcast and other exclusive content, find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Thrive Co-Living Communities. You can also learn more ways to support our mission in the show notes below. Amazon Smile, GoFundMe, Kroger, and our own Thrive Gear store, where you can buy t-shirts, hats, and many other items. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.